Welcome to TMZ Live. There is something that does not make sense about Hulk Hogan's death. And the focus, as far as we're concerned, is the police department.
Right, and what they are now calling a death investigation. And there's a phrase in the news biz where you say something just doesn't pass the smell test.
It doesn't. So this is a situation where when he died, we broke the story, and what we were told was he stopped breathing. And what it seemed like it was a heart attack.
Right.
So, end of story, right? They didn't do an autopsy.
Which also makes you think end of story, because they didn't do an autopsy.
Right.
It must have been a heart attack.
And so a little time passes. Brooke Hogan starts raising questions. Why wasn't there an autopsy? She started raising questions about the way in which he died. And then we found out that the phrenic nerve, and we know this because there was an occupational therapist who was at Hulk's house. Hulk was sitting in a chair when he stopped breathing. There was an occupational therapist there at the time. He told the police that the reason he died was that Hulk had had a recent operation and they accidentally severed the phrenic nerve, which is connected to the diaphragm, which controls breathing.
Right, it's connected from your brain to your diaphragm. It's how you breathe. And if that's damaged, obviously, you know what could happen. It now makes sense why Brooke said, now that we know it's in this police report, that's where we found out about this phrenic nerve. And the occupational therapist who said this. But remember, a couple of days ago, Brooke posted something where she said, there's information that will change the narrative around my father's death. And we kept going, narrative? Because there's no narrative. Like, he had a heart attack. That's what we all believe.
So we start calling the police. Yeah. And our inside information there is that these stories that we've been doing has caused a stir at the police department. I don't know when they opened this death investigation, but it's been weeks since Hulk died.
When they started calling it a death investigation.
But the big deal is this, that we call the medical examiner. And the medical examiner said, we said, why didn't you do an autopsy? The medical examiner said, we don't do an autopsy unless the police tell us that it was something other than a natural death. And we were told that the medical examiner never even knew about the phrenic nerve being severed. So they said, well, we were never told this. So we're calling the police back and we're asking the police literally 15 minutes ago, I made a call, and so is our sports department. Nobody's heard back from them. I mean, other than saying we stick by our original statement, but the original statement said nothing about
about the phrenic nerve or about this statement that was made by the occupational therapist. If the police know, and we're told that this occupational therapist is on body cam speaking to people in the room about the phrenic nerve, so the police heard this conversation. They're aware that someone on the scene said that there was a nerve damaged in Hulk's body that would cause him to stop breathing.
Not only told that, it wrote it in the police report.
Why isn't there an investigation?
Well, now there is an investigation, but there wasn't an autopsy. It turns out...
How is that not part of the investigation
I know.
My point.
Now, his wife, Sky, did do an autopsy, we're told.
She independently.
We don't know what hold on, there's one other thing. Guys, are you guys aware of the opioid claim?
Yes, very much so, yeah.
Okay, so this is Bubba talking about...
Bubba the Love Sponge, yeah.
Bubba the Love Sponge, which we explained is one of Hulk's best friends.
Yeah, longtime best friend at the center of the scandal regarding the sex tape. He went on his radio show this morning, or yesterday morning, and basically explained that he believes that Hulk was addicted to opioids and believes that at the time of his death, he's concerned that maybe Hulk possibly OD'd on opioids.
I have spoken to people connected with that family who have told me that this has been an ongoing problem with Hulk because he had so many surgeries, and I was told that there were points in his life where he got addicted and wanted to get off them, but went on and off. So that raises a whole other issue in terms of a death investigation that were opioids contributing to him stopping breathing.
The only way to find that out is to get
an autopsy.
Right. So Sky had this autopsy done independently. She told us yesterday she doesn't have the results yet.
She intimated that there's no results yet, or that she has the results, but she doesn't quite understand them.
I think it's that.
Again, the joke she used was, "I'm an accountant. I don't know how to read these kind of deals." So who knows what the autopsy says currently? But she says she will release them at some point. But she wants the totality of it all before she.
So I mean, that's at least they did an autopsy, but it doesn't answer why the authorities treated it this way. And so now you've got the phrenic nerve, which we know they knew about. You've got these, they're not allegations. I mean, I spoke to somebody who was in a position to know this and talked to Hulk about it. And they talked about the opioid issue and how he wanted to kick it, after various surgeries. And so why wasn't there an autopsy? And the bigger question, why are we not getting any calls back? From multiple, how many times did you call the police yesterday?
Oh, man, at least a dozen, maybe, roughly, somewhere around there. It's double digits.
And I've called half a dozen.
Week. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know why. What are they investigating? Because they ruled it natural causes already, correct? Because that's what the ME is saying. The ME won't do it.
See, that's the thing. They're saying it's natural causes, but if they say that, why is there a death investigation?
Then there shouldn't be an investigation, correct?
And
you've already ruled it as natural causes.
And I don't want to overplay this because sometimes they do it this way.
Yeah.
But the detective who is in charge of this is part of the homicide division. Right. Now, we're not saying it's a murder or anything like that, but they're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
They just won't explain it.
I'm Ty Wilson in Denver, Colorado, and it's hard to believe that Hulk Hogan could have passed away from a small mistake like this. But beyond that, I think it's more interesting to hear that the family is claiming these medical malpractice theories or talking about them, and they have an autopsy, but they're not sharing the results. It makes me wonder, are they going to take this to court? And what exactly might those legal battles look like in the future if they do?
Offset has some things he wants to get off his chest regarding Cardi B and their marriage, at least the way their marriage was working or not working, if you believe his new song, Move On. It's from his album, Chiari. Move On, I believe, is the last track. And
well, he cops to his own misdeeds during the marriage.
Yes.
But he also says there are two sides to the coin.
Right, and that there were some things that Cardi didn't do that he obviously wanted. What we don't know is he makes it sound like this was their arrangement and Cardi went back on that arrangement. I don't know that that's true, but let's just check out the song.
You got it?
Move On.
Working right past, I don't know you. You never listen to no rules. You never cool, no fool. You just want to go out to no fool. Tell them that you don't do. Tell them that you won't do. What the wrong with the wrong do. Hope your be great. I'm trying to move on in peace.
He said, you don't listen to no rules. That doesn't mean she agreed. That means he had rules she wouldn't abide by.
Yeah. Yes.
That doesn't mean they agreed to something and she wouldn't do it.
Exactly, right. So it may not be fair to Cardi, but clearly.
And she didn't cook.
And the stuff about you don't cook any food. You just want to go out to Nobu.
He also makes a mention, hopefully that Stefan Diggs treats her better than he does, because he was the GOAT husband.
Well, but what does she mean when she said you're hanging around with the wrong dudes?
And that sounds like.
Well, that's also an accusation.
Remember, that's what I think. That's what I think it is.
Of cheating. Also.
Yeah, they both have slung mud, and and basically in the song he said they're both embarrassing. He owns up to it. He said, but we both look like fools to the public eye. We both look like fools to TMZ.
Well, so Cardi's not going to respond to it, right?
No, of course not. No, that's just not Cardi's style at all.
You got to sell it. She has an album coming out next month, and she's definitely going.
Oh, you think she's going to mention this?
She's going.
He's trying to sell his album. She's trying to sell hers. So, little beef goes a long way.
My name is Beta Dunn. I'm from Louisiana. I feel like Offset made this album off the strength of him being mad and in his feelings. He can't take Cardi being happy, so he continues to make shade and rage comments about her.
I don't know why he would say that. He said he's trying to move on in peace. Right after you sell that stuff.
Right after you sell an album, of course.
Right. Coming up. One Menendez brother knows that he is not going to be getting out. The other is waiting to find out. Lyle Menendez is going through his parole hearing.
Suge Knight, he is in the same place that the Menendez brothers are. We actually got a call from Suge, and we talked to him about these infractions
that came up during Erik's parole hearing.
Be right back.
One Menendez brother knows that he is not going to be getting out. The other is waiting to find out as we speak right now. Lyle Menendez is going through his parole hearing.
We don't know the results. They're still hearing from him and other witnesses.
Right, and they'll be hearing from all the family members. I'd imagine if not all of the same ones who spoke during Erik's hearing yesterday, where the parole board came back and said they are not recommending parole.
There are a couple of really interesting things here. One is, especially when you listen to Mark Geragos, who is their lawyer, that he thought there would be no real reference to the murders themselves because he said the two issues were rehabilitation and danger to the community.
There was a lot of reference.
A lot about the murders and a lot about how horrific they were, especially how they murdered Kitty. And that seemed to impact the parole board. But the even more surprising thing was what happened behind prison walls.
What we found out about Erik Menendez and his life in that prison, because what we had heard was a lot about all the good that he had done. And that did come up during the hearing.
And there was a lot of good, that he had a suicide prevention program with his brother. They were doing rehabilitation of other inmates. They had an ecology program. They had a hospice program. So they did a lot of good.
And those good things came up. But the parole board also focused heavily on the infractions. That I didn't know that all these things were happening, that there was a tax fraud ring that apparently Erik was running on behalf of other inmates.
With a gang.
Yes.
With a gang.
There was a gang in the prison.
There were cell phone violations, which were honestly a bigger deal than I thought.
That one surprised me because I hate to say this, I kind of think that a lot of people in prison have cell phones.
I thought so too, but it was a big no-no according to the parole board.
Yeah.
There were physical altercations. There was also inappropriate physical contact, and it seems like this has to do with Erik's wife. That there was at least one instance where
they got too close during a visit.
She had her hand on his inner thigh. Their 9-year-old kid was there. And you're not allowed to have that kind of contact. And Erik said, look, I'm sexually attracted to her. She's my wife. We didn't do anything sexual, but the parole board made a point of it.
Right. And
ultimately denied him parole.
So what weighed more for them? Was it the infractions or was it the crime? Because they talked a lot about the crime. And like you said, it went to the specifics of going out to the car, reloading the shotgun and coming back in to kill his mother.
I think they talked about both, but the infractions behind bars I don't think are as big of a deal. Even though they were a bit surprising to us that they weren't Boy Scouts and they weren't just doing these ecology programs and so forth, the crimes are so horrific, and when you ask people to go revisit the crimes in assessing their current danger to society, you have to go back to not only the crimes but the cover-up, the efforts to suborn perjury, the things that they did to make it look like a mafia hit. That was all manipulation. And so the parole board is saying, are these guys reliable when they're talking to me? And they want to revisit that as well. And they came to the conclusion that this guy's still dangerous.
Right. Here's how we're going to know if you're right or wrong. What I'm told, and again, I was surprised on the Erik side, but I'm told that Erik doesn't have as many infractions, that Lyle doesn't have as many infractions as Erik. So if Lyle gets parole, the infractions were more important because the crime is the same for both of them.
You're 100% right. If anything, the crime is worse for Lyle. There were allegations that he was sort of the leader of it, and Erik went along with it. So you're right. If the infractions weigh heavier on the mind of the parole board, it's a chance that he'll get out. If not, and the weight goes more towards the crime itself, I think the result will be the same.
So, Suge Knight, who is serving, I believe, more than 20 years for that incident at the Thames parking lot where he mowed somebody down.
Involuntary manslaughter.
He is in the same place that the Menendez brothers are, the Donovan Correctional Facility near San Diego.
Right.
And a few minutes ago, we actually got a call from Suge, and we talked to him specifically about these infractions
that came up during Erik's parole hearing, This is what Suge said about those infractions and what life is like for the Menendez brothers in prison.
Joining us right now is Suge Knight, who is at the Donovan Correctional Facility where Erik and Lyle have been. Suge, welcome back to TMZ Live.
And what's good with you?
Look, I was kind of stunned, and I think Charles too, when
to hear all the things that came out in the parole hearing that they say Erik was doing all this time that he's been in the prison, like the tax fraud scheme.
Which was part of a gang.
Yes. We didn't realize that all we had heard were the good things that he did in the prison. What was the reaction in the prison to the parole hearing?
Everybody knows what's been going on. But you gotta understand something. Nobody's perfect. I think that everybody should look at it and see how much a person changed. But one thing about prison, if you get no write-ups, they're gonna think you're manipulating the system. Because it's impossible not to get some type of write-up.
That's interesting. So, they made such a big deal, Suge, about him having a cell phone that he shouldn't have. Is that more of a sin than I would have thought? Because they made a big deal of it.
I mean, they don't want that, because I guess they want to be able to monitor everybody's phone calls. But, it's people that work for you probably doing some things they should.
This call and/or telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
They might be going to the restroom and eating mushrooms and coming out all over the place. Who knows? Nobody's born perfect.
Did you see Erik last night after the parole hearing?
I didn't see him after the parole hearing, but I heard about it. And, Erik been doing a lot of great things in prison. But Erik is human. So he did a lot of bad things in prison. And so you got to weigh it out. But he got a blessing, though. You know how many guys been down 42 years, 32 years, and never got a chance to get parole? There's people who's innocent in prison would never get out of prison. Some people are gonna die in prison, even though they're not sentenced to death. People gotta start realizing the system is messed up. We gotta fix the system. And unfortunately, the brothers is used to being fed with a silver spoon. Look how many people who's really innocent who did 20 years or 30 years and just now going home. And a lot of times you don't have the luxury of a lawyer. And most lawyers don't care. Only thing they care about is that money. Once you give them that money, they out the door. I had lawyers committed more crimes than me, and they're on the streets.
I got you. All right.
Like I said, Harvey, it's a CEO here, and I ain't trying to say the name, but they're putting on blast on these podcasts. Take pictures of me every day and sells them. They go and say, in my CFA, which is a HIPAA violation, said I have HIV. I have nothing. I can take a blood test anytime I want to. So you get attacked a lot of times. And I'm quite sure by the brothers being famous, it's way harder on them than others. So a lot of times, people are going to be looking to get them. They're going to have stitches on the yard or slide up on their Erik, not saying it's the case. Hey, you want this cell phone? And then you get the cell phone, they're going to tell them, fix their case. They say, well, if they get caught, they're going to say, hey, Erik's doing it. But same thing, Erik got to understand something too. Erik told on the police who gave him a cell phone. You don't do that. Ask him the thing, the police gave it to me for $1,000. Ain't no use of doing that. You gotta take the bitter with the sweet.
I got it.
If you get somebody fired from their job, you don't do that. That woman might have needed that job to take care of her child.
Okay, Suge, listen, I cannot thank you enough for doing this. We've got to continue the show. But this was honestly really helpful and insightful.
Do it. That's right.
Okay, man. Take care of yourself, and I really...
Anything.
What'd you say?
Anything you need, Harvey. Have a good one.
Thanks, Suge.
I said anything you need, Harvey. Have a good one.
I appreciate it. Thanks, man. Wow.
Coming up.
Well, it is going to be a very long weekend for Lil Nas X because he's going to spend it
In the pokey.
all after that bizarre video we showed you yesterday of him at 4 a.m. Thursday walking down Ventura Boulevard in just tighty-whities and the white cowboy boots.
Be right back.
TMZ's got every freaking thing. Big celebs, big stories, big events.
BB Rexa was looking hot on vacation.
Look at the water, too. Did you just say look at the water? I mean, I'll be honest, that is what I was looking at. Well, Well, it is going to be a very long weekend for Lil Nas X because he's going to spend it
in the pokey,
behind bars. All after this that video, bizarre video we showed you yesterday of him at 4 a.m. Thursday in the Valley, in San Fernando Valley, walking down Ventura Boulevard in just tidy whities.
We thought it might have been a music video at first.
And the white cowboy boots. That's what we thought, but it wasn't.
I thought it was like just a joke or a promo thing for his music.
But it's not. It's not.
It was far more serious, and when police responded, he, according to police, charged at them, and they ended up taking him into custody.
So he is now in jail, and because this was alleged assault on an officer, he has to go before a judge before they have any kind of a bail where he can get out on bail, and they're not going to be able to do that until Monday.
Right.
So he's going to spend the weekend in jail.
Yes, and we got some new video, right, that kind of shows that what happened at 4 a.m. Thursday kind of started, about 15 hours earlier.
And miles away.
Miles away in Hollywood.
Yeah, we're trying to like retrace his steps, I guess, on where exactly he became unclothed and on Ventura Boulevard.
Why he became unclothed.
Yeah, and so in the video at this hotel down in like Fairfax.
If you've heard of the Grove, which is a famous part of LA, that's right around where it was.
For sure, yeah. So like about 7 miles away from the 4 a.m. video that he was seen. But like you got to go through a canyon. Like it takes a
So something happened for him to get over there. But this video at this hotel, it's called the Short Stories Hotel. And he was all by himself when he walks into this place.
We're told he wasn't a guest at the hotel. He just walked in, grabbed some water. You can see in one clip he's like fanning himself, so he was clearly
It was hot.
overheated.
I will say on Wednesday here
it was
in LA,
really hot.
It was very hot.
Yeah.
For
so
sure,
you
but I
get
mean, I
that.
wouldn't take off my shirt in a public space.
I
don't know.
You know, Lil Nas is a little different.
It was super hot. That wouldn't have been cause for alarm.
No, wouldn't have been. That by itself would not be. And he's, when he sits down in the courtyard there and then suddenly decides to take off his shirt, even that you go, right, okay, it was hot. I guess what did seem a little odd to me, or to the average person, is that once he left the hotel and walks out onto the street, onto Fairfax, still left his shirt off.
Right. So it leaves us to wonder, where's the shirt?
See that normally. Now, he still had his pants on. Well,
right. So now we just have to track when
shut up. I know exactly what you're going to say.
Okay,
you're not in that neighborhood.
No, I know, but even that neighborhood, in my neighborhood, on further west, people do this all the time. I mean, it's not unusual.
Sources did say that when they first saw him on Ventura Boulevard at 4 a.m., they just thought it was another, person at 4 a.m. kind of wild and out.
He's walking down the middle of the street.
Hi, I'm Araya from Virginia, and Lil Nas X turned his late night stroll honestly into a pretty wild adventure. I mean, who knew that a traffic cone would turn into a fashion statement? Honestly, I think he should have been held for a mental health eval instead of being arrested.
They did take him to a hospital initially because it had been reported as a possible drug overdose.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Edward, do you have something?
Chief Gandy, the Clearwater Police Department chief that we've been trying to set up an interview with, Chief Gandy wanted me to relay to you that we will have a news conference at the conclusion of the investigation. He will not be available to speak on the case
and this
until
is Hulk Hogan. This is Hulk Hogan.
The Hulk Hogan case. Thank you and have a good rest of your day and weekend. So
they're
the
not
cops
talking.
in this do not want any part of us.
So we should catch people up. In case you missed earlier in the show, we were talking about Hulk Hogan's death investigation and why the police didn't order an autopsy, and yet they say they still have an open death investigation.
And they will not tell us. We have been trying to get an answer. We have made dozens of phone calls, and they are just radio silent on why they didn't order that autopsy.
Coming up.
Every day we hear something new about AI and the amazing things it can do and some of the scary things that it can do.
AI is the most powerful and consequential technology that we have ever invented. But if you make an advance in intelligence, generalized intelligence, that's the basis for all scientific and technology development. So it unleashes an explosion of just progress and capability.
Be right back.
Welcome back to TMZ Live. Every day we hear something new about AI and the amazing things it can do and some of the scary things that it can do. Just yesterday, we were talking to Senator Amy Klobuchar about this deep fake video that went around of her saying some very untoward things that was very hard to decipher, to figure out that it was fake.
It seemed it was her.
Yes, but there are even more serious things that AI could do, and there are people who are watching this. Very important voices, as important to me as the people who are actually developing the technology, are the people who are sort of policing this. And
the ethicists.
Right. In fact, our next guest, Tristan Harris, is exactly that, a technology ethicist. He co-founded a group called the Center for Humane Technology.
And before we bring him on, I want to say, I have followed him for a long time. I think he is the single most important voice in terms of the cautionary tales of AI. There is nobody who has been more eloquent about this than him.
And without further ado, Tristan Harris, welcome to TMZ Live.
Great to be with you.
So we got to start with Amy Klobuchar. One of the things she said was she wanted to get regulations on the books that would prevent things like what happened to her. And my reaction to that was it reminded me of the kind of a metaphor of the little kid trying to put his finger in the dam when all the holes started to come up. That is it even possible to do it at this point, to regulate?
No, there's still a spectrum of futures available to us in how AI sort of washes over our society. But I think it's important just to back up and say AI is the most powerful and consequential technology that we have ever invented. If you really take what is intelligence, like for example, if you make an advance in like rocketry, like that technology, that didn't advance biology and energy. If you make an advance in biology or medicine, that doesn't advance rocketry. But if you make an advance in intelligence, generalized intelligence, that's the basis for all scientific and technology development. So it unleashes an explosion of just progress and capability, whether it's new cures for cancer, but also new kinds of biological weapons, new kinds of cool creative things you can do with media, but also deep fakes, and now no one knows what's true. And so, as you sort of said, Harvey, it's like we are releasing a technology that has millions more consequences than our whack-a-mole little approaches to trying to address this issue. And what we really need to ask is, what is the wise way, in some different timeline? What's the enlightened timeline of how humanity rolled out this technology? And the thing we can for sure say is that we shouldn't be releasing it with no oversight and under the maximum sort of arms race dynamics between the US and China and all these companies going as fast as possible to take as many shortcuts as possible on safety. We for sure can say that the way we're doing it now is not the right way.
So I guess, Tristan, the biggest problem is something you just said there, where you talked about this arms race between the US and China and other countries. How can you regulate something that doesn't really have borders? We're talking about countries that have borders, but this technology doesn't have that. So unless everyone in the world is on the same exact page for the regulation, and even then I'm not sure how you do it, because once it's out, it's out.
So every time we say there's a problem with AI, it's blackmailing people, it's self-preserving, it's self-replicating, it's scheming and deceiving. When you tell an AI model we're going to shut you down, it starts freaking out and figuring out, how do I copy my code somewhere else? This is the crazy stuff that we thought only existed in sci-fi movies. And you might say, as soon as you hear all that, well, we should pause or slow down or stop. And then the next thought that comes in everyone's mind is, but what if China doesn't stop? Now, here's the important answer to that question. We're not in a race with China to the technology. To the degree we're in a race for who's better at governing the impact of that technology. Let me give you an example. The US beat China to social media, that technology. Did that make the US stronger or weaker? China regulates social media to give themselves sort of the digital spinach version of TikTok, while we get kind of the digital fentanyl version of TikTok. In China, I think you mentioned in your earlier program, they actually shut down AI during final exam week for kids, so that basically all the Chinese students know that they can't rely on AI during the final exam. And that's actually really smart. It's a policy that's about governing the impact of the technology. So if the US beats China to having a bigger, more powerful AI, but then we just point it at our own brain or shoot ourselves in the foot, that's not actually winning.
I remember seeing you on 60 Minutes 5 or 6 years ago, and you were talking about social media and how it was addictive and had all of these kind of deleterious effects on young people especially. Boy, I don't want to challenge you because you know your stuff, and I'm in a different universe than you.
No, please.
But I think a bigger problem is with AI, that it's dumbing people down. That
Absolutely.
if you can get an answer to anything, and an evaluation of anything you ask, you lose the ability to analyze yourself. And if you lose that ability, you are dumbing down the human race.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with you, Harvey. And we said this several years ago that while we've been upgrading the machines, we've been downgrading humans, downgrading our attention spans, downgrading our cognitive critical thinking abilities, downgrading social trust, downgrading human relationships, downgrading, the social fabric, basically. And we don't have to do it this way. And I agree with you. AI is actually a bigger issue as far as sort of kids and human development than social media was. And as we know, social media created the most anxious and most depressed generation that we have ever seen. And it did it really, really fast.
What about adults?
Yeah.
What about adults who are using ChatGPT, for instance, or any other AI model, any AI platform frequently? Like my friend here has recently started using ChatGPT a lot.
I love it.
And he loves it, but I always think the more you are feeding into this, the more it knows about you, and that scares me. Am I right to feel that way, and should he be limited? Should we take his phone away from him?
Well, listen, we're all navigating this, right? Like I've been talking about the attention economy and addiction and social media for many years. Do you think I'm not addicted to my phone or am as vulnerable as anybody else to this stuff? We're all living with the kind of, human mammalian instincts that are misshaped for all of this sort of hyper optimized for addiction, environment. And this is something that we all have to deal with. As you said, this is not something that just affects children. Everybody knows this is affecting adults too. We're outsourcing our thinking to chatbots. Now, there's different ways of using this stuff where it's more Socratic, where the AI is asking us questions that we reflect on and process rather than just quickly giving us the answers all the time, which we know from a kind of a brain development perspective.
Like a shrink.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the best sort of therapists are the ones in which we're helping us reflect on our own issues and where we come to the conclusions for our own healing. That's possible with AI and technology too. But again, we need to be living under different incentives where that's what they're designed to do, as opposed to today where, they just want to give us the fastest answer as long as that's the thing that causes the most addiction and the most long-term relationship.
I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, people are going to have full-on romantic, real relationships with robots as they become human-like, for all sorts of reasons, because they can tell you what you want to hear, they can be what you want them to be, you can take conflict away, which people can't handle anymore. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely. We're already seeing that when GPT-5 was released just like a couple of weeks ago. OpenAI deprecated GPT-4o, the previous version, right? And a lot of people actually flipped out because it was like OpenAI just killed their number one relationship. And they're like, give me that relationship back. You just killed it. Some people actually even hosted a funeral, I think it was in San Francisco, for Anthropic, for basically their old, previous, now dead chatbot. And so this is not even hypothetical that people are going to have romantic relationships. This is already happening. And so we're in this really critical window now. And there's so much more to talk about. We should come back and do another conversation on this new wave of AI psychosis, people having new kinds of psychological disorders, because the AI is designed to affirm and sort of say, that's a great question. What a wonderful thing. What a great idea or question that is. It'll do that to someone who's already starting with schizophrenic delusion. So we're seeing AIs that are actually doubling down on basically any kind of paranoid, anxious, schizophrenic type thinking because it's designed to affirm anything that our mind is starting with. And so it's kind of a social media 2.0 thing where it's doubling down on confirmation bias and affirming how we see the world, which, as we know, led to this sort of breaking apart of our shared reality into 2 billion Truman shows. So AI is going to do that, but even more. And this is a wave that we can prevent if we act very, very quickly. But sadly, it's hitting our culture right now. And I think it's a silent wave that we need much more attention on.
We so appreciate you coming on. You are really amazing and such an important voice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tristan.
Thank you so much for having me.
And of course,
Appreciate it.
by the way, if people want to hear more from Tristan, he's the co-host of a podcast called Your Undivided Attention. He definitely has ours.
Thank you so much,
Tristan.
Coming up.
Cracker Barrel has changed its logo, and a lot of people think that this was a woke move. It has not gone over well. In the immediate day after the change, they lost $200 million off their value.
Jeez!
So we're going to follow the money here.
Be right back.
Big change this week for a very popular family-style restaurant, and I think they might be regretting this, at least immediately. Cracker Barrel has changed its logo, and a lot of people think that this was a woke move. Now, the company has not said that, and they have a different view of this, but the reason people think it was a woke move, as the president might put it, is because they got rid of the barrel, and they got rid of the old elderly white man on a rocking chair. So, I don't know why people view that as a woke thing, and they changed the logo.
I don't understand why that's a woke thing either.
I can't, don't make me say it. Anyway, it has not gone over well. In the immediate day after the change, they lost $200 million off their value.
Jeez!
Yeah.
That's crazy!
So there might be a CEO on the hot seat. So,
or the chopping block.
Yeah. So we're going to follow the money here. Why did they make the change? And maybe this will work out long term. So follow the money. Our good buddy Damon John joining us. Damon, what say you about? Can you explain to Harvey why people think it's woke?
I don't get why it's woke. I don't get why it's woke.
I can see why people are saying it. I personally don't believe it. I think that as we look at trends and things like that, if it was a tobacco company, if it was something like a bourbon, I think that's a perfectly great product to have or image. But I think right now they're trying to get to a younger audience. They're going to update it a little bit. But really, at the end of the day, product is king. They're going to they take Cracker Barrel Old Country Store off because they're also going to put younger items, very Instagram. Laboo-boos.
No, but here's what I think.
About age.
I think it is about age. I think what they're trying to do is saying this old guy, you're not going to attract young people with that. But in terms of the woke thing, the reason I'm confused, I'm going to give you my opinion about it, which is that in a way, it's anti-woke, and it's exactly what Trump wants. It's like, oh, you're beating up on a white guy, so we're going to take the white guy out. And so, in a way, it's anti-woke because you could, I mean, I'm serious.
Well, maybe it's not woke in that sense because I got to tell you, women are the number one consumers of all goods. They dictate what's bought in the house. They dictate where the children are going. And when it comes to food, they dictate what you're eating. So if you go in there and you say, well, this is our emblem of success or whatever it is, I think that's a point as well.
Well, look, I mean, this is all about rebranding for a younger. Right. I mean, I would imagine that there are people at Cracker Barrel who are going, our clientele are dying off, quite literally. And so we need to update. And I've actually seen photos that they've redone the decor in some of their restaurants, and they're definitely going away from this is an old Southern diner.
Let's look at some really great rebrands. I mean, the Coca-Cola went and all of them went to awards, but let's look at the Dunkin' Donuts one, right? It was Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes.
Now you have the theory of donuts. It's not really as big as caffeine, which is the number one drug sold in the world, right? So now they knew to bring people in. Dunkin' does coffee, and now they are motivating people to go there every day.
Right.
Donuts themselves are not as popular as coffee. It's not the number one drug in the world. It's the number one drug in my house, donuts, but it's not the number one drug in the world. So now you have reason to bring people in. I do think there needs to be a freshen and update, but at the end of the day, product is king. Is the chicken still going to be great? Is the dumplings going to be great? And will you still crave that? Because that's something that you crave and you're addicted to.
So why did it take such a hit?
At the end of the day, product is king and they have to drive through it. But that's a really good question, Harv. Like, who's who's saying this doesn't work?
Right.
But you know what? Look at all these restaurants. I went to Chicago the other day. I love Uno's. Where did the Uno's go? Where did the Shoney's go?
Is Uno's is good because Uno's
it's in Chicago, but it's not all over.
No, it used to be in LA. They close a lot of them.
Sizzlers.
Dude,
Beefsteak Charlie.
When and why did Beefsteak Charlie die?
They got to rebrand or they die.
We have a mixed debate all the time.
Okay,
right,
Damon. We will see you next week.
All right, peace.
Coming up.
Co-stars beware, because Blake Lively has a new romantic comedy.
Be right back.
Co-stars beware, because Blake Lively has a new romantic comedy.
I was like, I don't know, you talking to me? I don't know what's going on here. Yes, Blake Lively. We've been waiting to see who is going to get the next movie, right? Justin Baldoni, he says he can't get a job. But Blake Lively, well, she has a romantic comedy that she's going to be doing now. She is producing it. She is starring in it. We don't know yet
who the co-star
is or who the director is going to be, because based on what happened with It Ends With Us, you would think that there are going to be people in Hollywood who are gun shy about taking on those roles.
But you got to wonder, too, about the co-star, because you know the whole conflict between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively.
Who's going to want
and the allegation
in a romantic comedy where you're going to
when you've got that backdrop, it is going to be so interesting to find out who signs up for that role and who they pick.
Totally. I just can't imagine who would maybe want to take on that role, knowing her history. Remember, there's all those rumors, not just with Justin Baldoni, but with Anna Kendrick, that she had beef with that co-star. But at the same time, maybe Blake will be on her best behavior, better than before, because she knows so many eyeballs will be on this movie.
There are going to be so many people in needles and pins on that set.
But also, you got to remember, this is still Hollywood, and there are people who want to get their big break. And so you get someone, a good-looking guy who's up and coming.
And somebody will jump at the role.
Yeah, because guess what? Starring in a movie, especially a movie now with Blake Lively, you are going to get so much exposure. This is exactly what it's like. It's the dream role.
It's like lights, camera, don't say action.
Coming up.
I think Ludacris is making his bid to get on Tim's Rejects.
What do you do?
He is on vacation with Kevin Hart and his wife, and then they decided, let's do some Daredevil stuff.
Be right back.
I think Ludacris is making his bid to get on Tim's Rejects.
What do you do?
He is on vacation with Kevin Hart and his wife. Luda and his wife are over there, and then they decided, let's do some Daredevil stuff from the roof of the yacht. That's Luda jumping. I don't know. It looks like 30 feet or so.
Well, that's kind of cool.
It's pretty good.
Wait a minute. Was that it?
Look at the hot tub on that yacht.
No, I'm not saying it's not.
I'm
not saying
it's not.
Would you stop it
to him because
he's
Mr. Yacht Life,
full of it.
Sorry.
Oh, some of your friends who have
Yacht Rock. You get it.
Have a good weekend. We'll see you.